Welcome to What You Need to Know with Carla Pileggi Caviola, where the focus is to provide education, empowerment regarding your health and well-being. Today on our show, we will be talking about the amazing doulas and postpartum doulas with our special guest and specialist, Angela Falk. It is so good to have you with us today. It's an honor, Angela.
Oh, thank you so much. It's great to be here to talk about birth doula work and postpartum and just how we can be a support to new families and growing families.
Yes, absolutely. I know you've done a lot of births and postpartum work, and it's just amazing what you do. I know you've helped a lot of women and families over the years. Um, so just to fill you guys in, Angela is a birth and postpartum doula in addition to a childbirth educator, and she is amazing. I know a lot of people look for her help during this really delicate season of life. So again, I'm excited to learn from you, Angela, today. So why don't we start with tell me about your story and kind of how you ended up getting into this line of work.
Yeah, for sure. So from really honestly just a young age for myself, I've just always loved to be around children, and actually not just babies in particular. Really just remember being so excited when I could first, babysit officially and take a babysitter's course and these types of things. So that has definitely been always a part of me. And so then upon graduation, I had really thought that I would be interested in a nursing program. So I did start that through university here, and it was good. But there were other factors in my life that I wasn't fully aware of that definitely soon into university, I realized that that just wasn't the right timing for me. And potentially I questioned even the program itself. So I started to look at some other paths and became very interested in midwifery. And actually, even overseas, there was a program I was very keen on potentially going to and learning, where it was very hands-on, practical support, along with, of course, studying and the education piece as well. Again, that didn't come into reality as far as me joining that, but it definitely sparked a very, an interest in all things midwifery and how this all looks. And at the time myself, I was, 19, 20. So definitely not at an age where I had experienced a lot of people in and around my life who had potentially had midwifery care, and then doula care as I went on to learn what that was about. And so really, I found out about doula work through looking more into midwifery and was highly recommended to look at taking that path of education and training first. As just to simplify, midwifery is, of course, taking care of all things medical for the mom and for the baby. And family as well. But a doula is much more focused on informational support, physical support, emotional support, and sometimes advocacy all through out the prenatal and, of course, the birth itself and immediately after. So there is a difference. They definitely work really well together. And I just was highly encouraged that if I was to pursue midwifery, it would really round out my midwifery practice really well if I was experienced doula first. Yeah, so that's kind of how it all came to be. And then honestly, I started working as a doula after going through the training and such, and just really enjoyed it. And then shortly after, I actually ended up getting married. And then within a short time after, we welcomed our first child. And so I actually found that it was a really good fit for our family and flexibility of choosing, when I wanted to maybe care for more families outside of my own.
Absolutely. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So Angela, how many years have you been working as a doula and I guess now postpartum,
Mhm.
right? Because,
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
For sure. Yeah. So it's actually going to be 20 years this spring, which is kind of fun to
Wow.
think about. Um, so yeah, I first got my birth doula training, and then my postpartum training I did shortly after. And so my very first family I supported actually was as a postpartum doula, and I myself was pregnant, which was kind of fun. So it was all very real to me as far as just going through all those trainings and doing births and working with families, having referrals and things like that from um, doctors and nurses and midwives who had observed my work. That's a part of the training. And so that was really special, just to kind of really see, even a couple months down the road, even where I would be personally, let alone caring for a family transitioning.
Absolutely. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's great that you have all of your practical experience as
Mm-hmm.
a doula, postpartum doula, and childbirth educator, but you're also a mom, right? And so
Right.
you've been through it yourself. So, you know, there's something about that, right? Where not only do you have all the education that you need to help others, but you've also been in the hot seat, so to speak, right? Where you've
Right.
gone through all of, what we go through, right? As women and
Mm-hmm.
moms.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. And it is interesting because actually, in the profession of doulas, there are doulas who actually have not given birth themselves. They don't have actual natural families themselves, and are still fabulous doulas, of course, full of compassion, empathy, but also information and experience. However, there is um, lots of women who end up going through the process of labor and birth and right postpartum stage afterwards, who then really develop an interest and kind of that passion of like, whoa, I think I could see myself wanting to do this for other women, right, and other
Right.
families. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting mix that way. Hmm.
Excellent. Very good. So tell us a little bit more about, I know you mentioned, kind of the difference between a midwife and a doula, which is
Hmm.
really helpful because I think a lot of, us women and people just in general, like maybe sometimes don't have a lot of clarity about this, right?
Hmm.
So tell us a little bit about what are the benefits that you see like day to day with your clients, the families that you work with, in regards to having a doula and then certainly like a postpartum doula, right? One for each phase, right?
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. So I think it's helpful, to contact, if you're interested, even just out of interest, say to reach out, contact someone earlier on, earlier the better, even in regards to the support and care you can receive. We can offer a lot of resources, a lot of just things to consider and think about, even when it comes to potentially caregiver that you're considering for your prenatal care. And that can look differently depending on maybe even your outlook and your perspective on labor and birth at the time. And so, again, it really helps to widen, right, um, our outlook when we haven't been in that place before. So we may just think, oh, it's really normal to go to my general practitioner, my doctor, and then I'll just take their referral as to who maybe, would be a good caregiver for me. However, often say the paths of maybe midwifery care, maybe, a different type of hospital, even down, I know in the States, it's a little bit different, maybe is a bit more baby centered or baby friendly, is often a term that we use in Canada
Mhm.
here.
Yeah.
And so there's just things that we can, have conversations about and discuss with experience and maybe help to lay out a few different options that you might not think of earlier on.
Yeah.
So that's a real bonus of early care. But again, it's very common if someone maybe never heard of a doula and then all of a sudden, halfway through their pregnancy, they contact us, right? And they're interested in some information. And so, even at that point, it can be valuable because if you've taken maybe a childbirth education course or a
Mhm.
prenatal course, it can be so helpful then to have someone to again have a conversation, flush out maybe some of the information, some of the new things that you heard, and help to articulate maybe questions that you could go to your caregiver with, maybe help you even articulate what are your true hopes and wishes, and they may differ from maybe the 5 or 6 people who were in your prenatal class, and that's okay, right? And so making it more individualized and finding that support that way.
Mm-hmm.
So even then, and then again, even to say we've had people literally at almost their due dates reach out and just say, you know
Okay.
what, I had no idea this support existed, or I'm really interested. Can you still support me? And absolutely, right? And then we just jump in and we're focusing a bit more on what information do you have so far? Can we fill in any gaps? So essentially, almost offering a bit of a private one-on-one class per se, where we're filling in anything prenatally that we feel is valuable to know, and then moving forward and looking at the actual prep for the labor and birth and postpartum stage.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
yeah,
So you have people contacting you in different phases,
that's
right,
right.
in their
Absolutely.
pregnancy. What do
Hmm.
you think that, in your experience, in your 20 years of experience almost, most people are really looking for? Like, what would you say their number one desire is?
Right. I think knowing that they have a like continuity of care. So just someone
Yeah.
who is consistent, someone they're familiar with, so have built a bit of a rapport, a relationship with, who really has heard what their kind of hopes and wishes are for, right? Kind of the day of birth or leading up to birth, that type of thing. And yeah, can really just stand alongside the person birthing, as well as if there is a partner or family there, and can hold those things for them and potentially maybe either remind them in the moment, maybe if
Yeah.
decisions are, needing to be made, or different options have opened up during even the birth itself. That again, someone who really knows them and has heard previously what they're hoping for can have a quick little side conversation and allow them, yeah, just those valuable moments, right? To feel a part of decisions, to feel a part of being heard by caregivers, and making the decision together.
Yes. Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's true. There are decisions that sometimes need to be made and so
That's
forth.
right.
And so just to have someone to kind of bounce those ideas off of, somebody that's obviously well educated and informed
Right.
and giving you the space to kind of facilitate that
Yeah.
decision making can be, I'm sure, a game changer for many women
For
and
sure.
their
And
families.
at all points, it's always the birthing person making the decision, right?
Yeah.
And at
Yep.
all points, it's them and maybe their partner, right? Essentially taking the information that we can provide, maybe some other options that they hadn't thought of or considered in the moment, and then giving them time to decide. Because ultimately, no matter how much support we have, we are ultimately responsible for, right, the decisions that we're making. And so it's being informed and empowered
Yeah.
to make those decisions. And that actually has been shown in studies, statistically, that then people feel much more satisfied on the other side of their birth. And
That's
because
right.
birth is something that we remember for a lifetime, right? It impacts
Right.
us in that way, that is an important goal, is even if the birth does not maybe unfold in the ways that we hope and wish, or
Mhm.
exactly in the details that we would have hoped to have happened. If we can come out of it, though, feeling like we were informed, we were empowered in decisions, we were a part of the process, this in turn really helps us in our processing after,
Mhm.
to feel satisfied, and helps us also in those times of potentially, um, right, when our hormonal imbalance is very obvious, right, during those first few weeks after birth in particular,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
then yeah,
Yeah.
the years to follow.
Because it helps to have better outcomes for sure, right?
Absolutely.
Emotionally, I know I work as a perinatal mental health specialist, so
Yeah,
I also work with clients kind of, but again, dealing with the mental, emotional health, and just to be able to feel like you're being nurtured and cared by your provider can make such a difference. And then being informed and empowered,
Mm-hmm.
right, is so key as well.
Yeah.
Like you said, just having better outcomes after, feeling better, maybe more resolve, some level of resolution in regards to birth, the
Mm-hmm.
birth experience, and so forth. Um, what would you say the benefits are for postpartum doulas? Do you have families calling you just like during their postpartum period and saying, oh, maybe they didn't have a birth doula, but now
Mm-hmm.
they want a postpartum doula?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. So again, if people hadn't heard, right, or just weren't
Yeah.
aware, or just decided that, for different reasons that they were not going to do a birth doula, but then realized there's postpartum services. So really, it's coming in, and we're just really wanting to um, provide just the nurture and care for the one who has birthed, essentially, so that they are freed up to really care and be available for their baby. And so having some of those essential things, such as just help to facilitate, some sleep, maybe a nap, some extra rest, or even give ideas and again information on how they maybe can attain more rest,
Yeah.
even with a newborn, right, through the nights. Those things are so essential, along with, of course, nutrition, and then of course helps with even just then caring for the baby practically, right, feeding the baby, caring for the baby, so that those main things are facilitating ultimately recovery, right, in that immediate postpartum
Yeah.
phase, but then also the newborn care, right, that baby will need.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hmm.
Just to have an extra set of hands can be such a
Hmm.
blessing, right? When you have a baby and then, just getting sleep in those first few days or
Yeah.
weeks, recovering, whether it's from a vaginal or C-section birth,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's a lot of factors, that can come into the mix, right? Feeding the baby,
Hmm.
breastfeeding or bottle feeding or
Yeah.
both, there's a whole combination. Sometimes there can be stressors and challenges in that and everything else. So
Hmm.
to have that extra set of hands and someone that's also, informed and educated in this,
Hmm.
knows what they're doing, I'm sure can be such a relief,
Yeah.
right, to so many families.
Yeah, and there's lots, dependent on maybe where we're living at the time, right? Sometimes we have to
Yeah.
move for jobs or our partner's jobs. And so we don't always have maybe family or close friends that, feel kind of like family that we would invite to step into our lives in this, right? More, yeah, just change, right? A time of change and transition and newness to us. So
Yeah.
when we don't even have that physical extra support, postpartum doulas can be so valuable in stepping in to even play a bit of that role where, it's common if we do have those others to reach out to, they can also help to be, a support to a certain level, right? Not necessarily having all the information and education up to date per se.
Right.
However, just being that extra set of hands, as you're saying, is so important.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
How long would you say families hire for the postpartum doula? Is it sometimes just a few weeks, or how long would you say they might
Yeah,
hire someone like you for?
right. Yeah, so it's really dependent on the person. So some people really know that, okay, I'm going to be fine probably for the first week, and then my partner needs to head back to work already in the second week full time. So then they may ask for every day, maybe to have someone come by. Typically a postpartum shift here, we do about 3 to 4 hours for
Okay.
every visit. It's just enough time to kind of come in, provide a little bit of space for some extra rest, maybe do a little bit of light snack meal prep, right? Because we're focusing on mom's nutrition as well. Um, And then also, maybe just kind of help to set up for the rest of the day. So it's almost like you're just kind of helping them to prepare and do the rest of the day, well for them and for the baby. So 3 to 4 hours. And I would say that varies. Some people may just want that once a week, again, depending on maybe some other helps that they have. Others may even want, say 2 to 3. So it really is individualized. And even time of day, we do find generally mornings, right? We can imagine being up with our babies through the night and meeting their needs that by, early morning, we're ready for maybe a longer piece of sleep. And again, if we have partners and they've already headed to work, that can be a little bit hard. So often we're coming in the mornings. However, if there's other children, right, in the mix, if this is actually a second or a third or a fourth baby, sometimes this can be really helpful in and around nap times of the other children, in and around even sometimes bedtimes, dependent on, again, the family scenario. So it's quite flexible, which is, what we want it to be to meet the family's needs.
So you're really providing individualized support for each
Yes.
family. It's client centered.
Yeah.
You provide what they need, and sounds like wonderful help. I'm sure every family would love to hire a postpartum doula.
Yeah.
Do you find that finances can be a hindrance? Do you find that can be challenging for some families, or how are you?
Absolutely.
Again, just
Yeah.
to be able to have a little moment for yourself, to nap, to sleep, to have a
That's right.
shower, right? Like the basics. Once you have a baby, it's like you're just focusing on the basics, right? Sleep,
Yeah.
eating, maybe doing something for yourself that brings you peace and joy, maybe a brief walk or something. You know what I mean? Getting out of the house can be like a lifesaver, right? Where you
Yeah.
just kind of take a breather and then come back again, right?
That's right. Absolutely. This is where we can get creative sometimes for people, where we've had lots of people contact us about doing a group gift, for someone they know who's going to be having a baby. And so that's lovely, where families come in and maybe they're out of town again and they gift towards services. We've even had prenatal classes, right, gifted, which is lovely. So yes, finances can be an issue. I know for myself, being young and married and having a baby, like that was beyond our reach at the time. And thankfully, I just happened to be, in that line of work and training at the time, where I had some friends who we ended up just doing this for each other. And so it is something that is, I do hope can be available for every single, family and birthing person that would want that. Here in Canada, we are actually moving towards, which is good, having some private insurance actually cover this under different categories. So that's a huge, difference. We also have had some social workers reach out, where there is some funds allocated for some families and clients that they're supporting. So there sometimes is some avenues in and around that. And then absolutely, doulas have done work where it's either sliding scale, where they can just say, hey, what do you feel you can contribute? What do you feel you can give towards the service? And then work out something together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know sometimes with our professions there can be, barriers, but
Yeah.
sounds like we definitely know there's a need, right? And you
Yeah.
guys are trying to meet that need and provide a solution.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like it definitely in Canada, maybe you guys have some good things happening, going in a good direction. So, yeah, let's see what happens here in the States, but
Mm-hmm.
and just globally, right? I know
Yeah.
there's such a need everywhere, regardless of where we're living, right?
That's right.
What would you find, Angela, are the kind of like common challenges that moms might experience? Um, Things that maybe you've witnessed in your line of work, whether it be during pregnancy or the postpartum period, right? Which again, the
Mm-hmm.
postpartum period is from birth through the first year of life, unless breastfeeding is extended beyond, then, the
Mm-hmm.
postpartum period is extended. So what would you find the most common challenges are, you being, a doula and a provider working really closely with women and families?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it can start even some of these challenges before conception for a lot of families. So if there has been difficulties in becoming pregnant and they've had a journey of infertility for a time, whether they've gone, the IVF path, there's all kinds of different things, right? So then I find that if I step in and they are, right, they are pregnant and this is, a very anticipated, right, pregnancy, that sometimes there's quite also a bit of anxiety, maybe just being a little bit more stressed on edge to meet certain points and dates per se, right, along their pregnancy. And so that's just good to be very, very aware of. I think even families that haven't struggled with infertility and then become pregnant, but then begin to maybe experience some symptoms of depression and anxiety, and not recognize that actually that can be a part of pregnancy for many, where a mood disorder appears and maybe that has not been a part of their history. So those things can be a little bit jarring, right? Initially, if they're not having understanding or recognizing that this can be quite normal and is definitely one of, right, the most treatable, thankfully, mood disorders, prenatally and
Absolutely.
postpartum, which is so
Absolutely.
hopeful to hear, right? And so, yeah, so I think those things, more prenatally can be a little bit that way. Also, just as you're going along, right? We don't always know, but sometimes things come up in our pregnancy, even such as, let's say, placenta previa, right? Or high blood pressure or gestational diabetes, like just some very common prenatal, health, related things. And so, again, just knowing that really the whole process requires us to learn to be more flexible, to learn to embrace information maybe we weren't expecting, and then how to learn how we're going to respond to that. So again, this is where, say, a doula or like yourself, right, prenatal specialist in caring for families even prenatally and postnatally is so helpful to speak to someone with that information that can calm these things and help us to learn new ways to respond and
Absolutely.
different outlooks. And then, yeah, that
Find out-
carries.
Oh,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
sorry. No,
Yep.
no,
I was just
absolutely.
going to say, when you encounter someone that maybe does have, what we would call perinatal mood or anxiety disorder,
Yep.
right? So, like during pregnancy or that postpartum period, they might experience like, depression, anxiety, or
Mhm.
different emotional complications. In fact, there's a whole spectrum of them, right?
Right.
And moderate, mild, severe, different in all these different, emotional complications that can arise. And how
Hmm.
do you deal with it? I mean, being in Canada, I know, like for myself, that is my specialty as a counselor. So I counsel people through it. I can also coach people through it, providing teaching, training, and so forth. How does the doula work um, with a client going through that?
Right. So sometimes it can be even listening. We do a lot of listening and hearing that potentially partners, because actually it's often partners that notice some of these mood
Yeah,
changes and things appearing in the one pregnant.
that's true.
And so it's listening also to their concerns or their kind of wonderings, right? And then being able to flush that out a little bit more with the person, and then we can step into a role because we are not, again, trained as yourself in counseling that. However, we can lay out and say, do you know that there are some great people that you can go and see who are, right, trained and specialized in this? Are you aware, right, of these options in our community where you can go and meet with someone, or you can call this number? We actually, in here we have in Winnipeg, where I'm living, there's something called a 24-hour warm line. I love the name. It's
Yes,
so sweet, but
yes,
it's actually retired nurses who have worked in this whole area, and like women can text and call 24 hours a day, which is amazing, and
that's
just be connected up, right, to where they need to get more information.
excellent.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
So you're able to provide the resources that they
Yeah,
need, whether it's through their warm line or whether it be through providing like counseling resources or whatever type of resources they might need so that they
absolutely.
can start feeling better.
Yeah.
Basically, right?
Yeah.
Everybody wants to feel more like themselves
That's
in the
right.
end
And
of
to
the day.
normalize it, right? That, you know what,
Yeah,
you are not alone in this. You're not the only one feeling this. This is actually
that's
quite
right.
common. It
That's
is surprising maybe to you, but yeah. Hmm.
so many women are caught off guard, right? And
Absolutely.
this is where it's so important for us to provide this education so that we can empower and hopefully even help people to move towards like early intervention, right?
Hmm.
So they're not just suffering, for a
That's
long
right.
time and then, finally, they're, they can spiral, right? So we want to get
Hmm.
people feeling better, more like themselves, like right away,
That's right.
whether it's during the pregnancy or the postpartum period. So
Yeah, that's
really
right.
great. I'm loving what I'm hearing from you, Angela, and I love the fact that there's retired nurses that actually
Yeah.
are helping with this warm line. That's amazing.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Um, so let's take a look. So it sounds like, those are definitely challenges. And
Hmm.
then would you say, postpartum, are there any other challenges that you would add to
Hmm.
that you've
So,
seen in your line of work?
right. So I would say again, because we are all so different, right? And individual, that again, even that idea of prenatally that maybe we'll have a little morning sickness and then we get over it, and by
Yeah.
second trimester we're feeling great. And again, that's not always true for everyone. Some people are literally kind of sick all the way through, right? Or just have different, timelines. And this can be true also on the postpartum stage. We kind of compare the actual stage to be right in line with what the newborn phase is, which is the first 6 weeks after,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
birth. And so there's a reason there, right? We have 6 weeks of newborn stage, 6 weeks of postpartum, and that is a stage. And so just recognizing that we all take different timelines of the initial recovery, even physically,
Yes.
right? Emotionally, all those are different, based from person to person. So I think that's good to be aware of, right? That even
Absolutely.
if your friend who had a baby, 2 months ago was up and doing all kinds of things, right, within 3 weeks of giving birth, that might be very different, right, for you, and
Absolutely.
that's okay. That's really normal. Hmm.
Absolutely. Everybody's going through a different situation. They might have different types of, things happening in their life, different stressors, different, like you said, maybe sometimes people move to a different city or a location where there's no family,
Yeah,
friends, supports. There maybe the job is unstable, maybe the relationship is unstable. There's so many different things that can happen, right?
that's
And
right.
just so many new things, right? During
Yeah,
pregnancy, then postpartum,
right.
a lot of new things happening all the
Yeah.
time, right? Through developmental stages of the newborn slash infant, and then obviously mom and the family, the parents learning how to, deal with all these different things,
Oh,
right?
yes. Yeah.
Feeding the baby and everything else.
Yeah.
Um, so a lot of changes. It's a season of major changes.
Hmm. That's right.
Yeah.
And again, that's that flexibility piece, right? That we almost are forced to learn as the one carrying the babies, right? We're
Yeah.
forced to learn this flexibility of even with our own bodies and adjusting, right, to all the differences. And then that prepares us in certain ways. And then as we get closer to our due times, maybe, our sleep is a little bit more interrupted, right? Like
Yes.
it's all in preparation really for launching us into this next phase of parenthood, right? And taking care
Yes.
of little ones who really do need us 24/7. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
A major transition in life,
Yeah,
probably the top transition in life, or one of the top ones, right? That we
for
might
sure.
experience.
Yeah.
Wow. So very good. I know Angela, um, for any other viewers out there, what would you say would be kind of like the most important tips you want to give someone, just anyone that might be considering a doula today, or a postpartum doula, or like you said, maybe even for a family member, what would be some really important tips you might want to leave them with today?
Hmm. Well, I think that you can never have enough support. And really just seeing the value in, I understand the idea of, thinking of labor and birth, and that it's a very intimate, right, kind of vulnerable time, and that maybe adding more people in doesn't always feel like a priority. And yet I think it's good then to also counter that, though, with someone that you can build some relationship with, and someone who really takes time to listen and hear what your hopes and wishes are, is always a good addition. Definitely not something I think that anyone regrets. But again, sometimes is something that people just kind of think, well, maybe I just want it to be my partner and I for the first one, and then maybe the second one I will consider more support. And I would just say that often most of the people we end up having more of is the people who gave birth, and then their second birth is coming saying, I wish I had more support. I wish I had looked into or known, right, about a birth doula. Or even just more prenatal education, because that's right up there too in really being aware and understanding the changes. So yeah, so I would just say you can have enough support even on the postpartum side too, right? Knowing that if there are people who you are comfortable with, and that is important. You don't want to also invite people in to your initial recovery space who maybe just due to dynamics relationally aren't actually the easiest people to be around, or trigger us, right? Or make us stressed out just even thinking they're coming over, let alone being there. And we all have experienced these things in our life, right? And to know who we're choosing to be in our space is really important.
Yeah.
And so knowing that there is options, right? Of people who can provide calm, restful recovery, but also really good information and
Yeah.
support.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You're right. Sometimes we need to have boundaries with
Yeah.
people, for sure. I know that can sometimes be a stressor, but it's also, like you said, important. It sounds like from what you're telling me about your profession is just having somebody who's well informed and
Hmm.
up to par, right? Up to par.
Right.
Sometimes we might have, family members,
Yeah.
or whether it might be parents, or, whoever it might be, in-laws, like thinking about all the family members, but, somebody that's really up to date on like what's current medically
That's right.
speaking right now, or, in regards to, newborn or infant care,
Hmm.
right? All of these things have changed over the years,
Right.
right? Like back in the day, um, people were not too long ago had bumpers in the cribs, and
Yeah.
like let's think about all the different development that's changed, right, in regards to safety and so forth. So
Hmm.
having somebody that is in your corner, somebody who's well informed,
Hmm.
up to date on all of these updates, sort of speak, can be,
Yeah.
like I said again, you know, just an added bonus to have somebody there walking through you, right? Which
Yeah.
is your role as a doula and a postpartum doula, just walking them through it and providing that care, information,
Absolutely.
helping them make these maybe well-informed decisions, that they choose for themselves.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really great. So I am so, I've learned a lot today with you, Angela. I really appreciate your time, and I feel like you've added so much value to the viewers today, to myself alike. Um, it's been amazing having you here today, just sharing about your expertise and helping us all gain clarity about the amazing work you do and about the profession of doulas and
Hmm.
postpartum doulas. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're so
Um,
welcome.
it's been wonderful having you.
Oh.
Um, I just want to tell all you viewers today, and again, much appreciated, Angela. Maybe we'll have some more chats in the future. If you have found this time to be educational, empowering to you, and insightful for your health and well-being, please click on the link below and subscribe to my channel. Also, please feel free to share this with your friends and family or to anyone you feel like might benefit from today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to sharing what you need to know next time. Thank you. Take care and be well. Until then, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ange.